like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to speak about our project in Senegal with the Legume Lab and USAID. We appreciate very much the opportunity to be here today. So we're going to talk about our longstanding research program that we've had looking at optimized shrub intercropping systems for, and specifically to look at improving cowpea productivity. Next slide. So as I'm sure this everybody is quite aware, there are major challenges in the Sahel. There's a very historically sandy soils, low fertility, and then combined with increasing populations and agricultural productivity, overgrazing and so forth, and creates a challenge for managing these soils for long-term productivity. And most of the farmers are subsistence farmers. The Green Revolution technologies with fertilizers and inputs and so forth have really not been used very much in this region. Next slide. The challenge is that in this part of the world, the population is growing exponentially, as shown in the top line here, and whereas the yields since the 1960s, which is shown in the blue triangles, has really pretty much stayed the same. This is millet, but it's pretty much the case for all the crops in the region. And yet the land and the way people have been feeding themselves is by increasing the land under production, which is shown by the orange oval dots, symbols. So, and that is plateauing. So it reached a point where population goes up, the amount of land available, arable land is not, it is not opportunity to increase anymore. So we have to make up this difference by increasing the yields. Next slide. And so we've been working on a potential solution to this for over 20 years now, largely in the research realm, but now moving into working with farmers. But it is a biological and local solution using native shrubs to really work at remediating these degraded soils. And to remediate these soils, a major factor is the amount of biomass that goes in the soil. So if you look around at what's typically available, manure, or what comes off of trees, because there are some trees that potentially are planted in farmers' fields or that coexist there, but the amount of biomass produced by these are on a village area basis are too low. So whereas we've discovered that these two native shrubs, Garrus senegalensis and Pellistigum reticulatum, which are found in farmers' fields throughout the Sahel, can produce quite high amounts of biomass in what we call in our optimized system, which we'll talk more about in a minute. Next slide. So the traditional management system, this is what's shown in Senegal, but pretty much typical perhaps throughout the Sahel, is that the few shrubs that are in farmers' fields, which are typically 200 to 300, 350 at the most, are copiced, put in piles, and then burned. And then unfortunately, this is a loss of organic matter that could be going in soils. And it's part of the reason why these soils become so degraded. Next slide. So the optimized system involves increasing anywhere from 200 to 300 plus shrubs per hectare. That's currently in farmers' fields up to as high as 1,500, 1,200 to 1,500 shrubs per hectare. And instead of burning the residue, all of this residue is put back in the soil. And as you can see here, we can get a fair amount of biomass from this system with these higher density shrub management stands. Upwards of 3 megagrams per hectare per year can be produced. And this is a picture of 2016 on our long-term plots showing the response of millet to the plus and minus shrub cropping after about roughly 8 years of this system being in place. Next slide. So the optimized system basically still involves copicing, but instead of burning, the residue is put in the soil. And then the second thing is to actually plant shrubs in farmers' fields. And this is one of our collaborating farmers currently in our USAID on-farm testing program. She's planting Garrus senegalensis. Next slide. So the really important results we've had after all these years of research, which is roughly going on 31 peer-reviewed journal articles now. We increased the soil quality to remediate soils. There's a dramatic increase in organic matter. At least 2 times as much organic matter as when we started is now permanently being held in the soil. Another really interesting thing is that we've discovered that these shrubs bioirrigate. These roots go very deep. These shrubs have the roots that go very deep right to the top of the water table. So we measure them down at 10 meters, 30 or 40 feet, and they're able to actually bring up water at night when the photosynthesis stops, and they leak out water into the surrounding soil. And we've shown that this actually can get crops through in-season drought periods. And other benefits are increased nutrient water efficiency. We've shown that we increase the microbial diversity by the presence of shrubs, and particularly some beneficial microorganisms. They sequester a lot of carbon. And another really important finding is that these shrubs decrease the time to harvest for the crops we've studied most intensely up until this point, which is millet and peanut, on the order of 15 days. So this is an important property for a semi-arid environment because of the uncertainty of the rains. And so if you can get your crop in and out of the field quicker, you reduce the chances of having a negative effect due to a poor rain season or in-season drought. Next slide. So what we're going to talk about, our particular legume project has these 4 objectives. We're going to talk mainly about objective 2 this year for time purposes. And next year we'll be talking about objective 1 and some of the other, and 1, 3, and 4 for that matter. So today we're going to specifically talk about screening cowpea varieties, looking for those that would be better adapted for this optimized shrub intercropping system. So with that, I'll turn it over to Musa, who's been heading up this research in Senegal.
Thank you, Richard. In 2020 and 2021, we carried a trial where we had 8 varieties involved and 2 management systems. One was an optimized management system with shrubs, and shrubs were Pileostigma reticulatum and Gera senegalensis, and the traditional management system was the usual plot of the farmer where you have no inputs. So basically this trial was carried out to see if using the shrub can increase the yield of cowpea. And the cowpea that we have was 5 varieties that have larger seed size, and namely Sam, Kel, Leona, Lizard, and then we had also Yasin, Bombay 21, and Murid as varieties that were released earlier. And next slide. So this is just to remind about the result that we had recorded in 2020. In this plot, you can see the OSS plus is the system that is optimized, where we have the involvement of the shrub, and OSS minus is the plots where you don't have nothing. So the plots where we have a representation of the true condition of the farm, which is growing cowpea without any inputs. And then you can see Pileostigma reticulatum is in Nyoro, is a wet area, and Gera senegalensis is located in Chess, and this is a dry area. But when you look at these plots, the box plot, you can notice a difference, a huge difference, especially in the Pileostigma reticulatum, where you have greater performances in plots that involved the presence of Pileostigma reticulatum. Next slide, we have pretty much the same trend in 2020, but we learned a lot from our experience in 2020 2020, because that was the first time we conducted this kind of trial. And we took that experience and then implemented it in 2021 so that we have greater results. And we are pretty much happy about the results, because look at these figures. You see the management systems involving the shrubs, and the yield is always higher than the typical traditional management system. And this is almost like 400% greater in plots where you have involved the shrubs. In plots where you have nothing, the yield was very, very, very low. And when you look at these data, they are, because the potential yield of our varieties range from 1 ton per hectare to 3.5 ton per hectare. So that means that the farmer can pretty much reach the yield that we can have in a managed trial in research institute. And that is great. That means better resilience of the farmer. Next slide. Yeah, now in terms of best performing varieties, so as I was saying, we had 8 varieties that was tested under shrub and under minus shrubs. And then what you can see here is Yasin was the best performing variety under Piliostigma reticulatum, and the second best was Kelp. And you see also Leona, the best one under Gera senegalensis, and Yasin was the second best one. But then you notice the yield was always greater than 3 ton per hectare, and in the plots that involved the shrubs. But in the plots where you did not have shrubs, it was very difficult to barely reach 500 kilogram per hectare. And 500 kilogram per hectare is a reference figure. That is the mean in sub-Saharan Africa in terms of grain yield. So you can exceed 500 kilogram per hectare. Is like very, very difficult to exceed this figure. So if we can have a technology in the optimized management system that can dramatically increase yield at the point where you have the yield that you would have had in research institute. So that is, I mean, a great improvement of the resilience of farmers. Next slide. So in terms of effect of the management system, we have noticed that yield, grain yield, biomass, fresh biomass yield, dry biomass yield, and 100 seed weight was very sensitive to the management system, meaning that we had a significant effect of the management system. But for other parameters such as plant stand, plant height, and stem diameters, they did not change according to the management system. Next slide. This is a picture we took in 2020 just to show the contrast that you can have between traditional management system represented by here minus OSS and optimized management system represented here by plus OSS. So you can see the difference in terms of the fresh biomass and the plots where we had the shrubs, the presence of shrubs. Plant tended to develop at least 3 times better than plots where we did not have the shrub. And last year, as I was saying, it was a trial that was very difficult to manage, and we couldn't at this period get the grain yield because there was some other parameters that we did not take into account, such as the presence of insects. And then we couldn't have data on the yield. And we factored that information into the trial of 2021. Unfortunately, we don't have pictures to show you in 2021, but looking at the figures, you just notice dramatically how different the difference was. Next slide. What we can learn from this experiment is we can significantly improve the resilience of farmers by using this technology. And what is about is having the shrub, as they naturally grow in farmers' field, instead of burning them or eliminating them completely to the field, take advantage of their presence by using the biomass to incorporate it as a fertilizer into the soil, and then also having the plants in the plots that will play that role of bioirrigation as it uses its root system to bring up the water that would have been difficult to access, to be accessible for the plant. And the cowpea cultivars perform differently under Piliostigma reticulatum and Guerra senegalensis, that what we have seen also in this experiment. And also this appear to be an approach that can really attain genotype yield potential. So another picture that you can see here, Guerra senegalensis and Piliostigma reticulatum. So how the cowpea perform. Yeah. These are the information that we wanted to share, and thank you very much.